Yeah. Test, test, test. Smile. You good out there? You good?
We can sit here. Should we sit?
Sit right here. This is perfect, yeah? How are we good out there? We ready to get rolling? All right. Hey, everybody. We can take our seats. We'll get started here. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Has everybody had coffee?
Yes.
Enough? No, but guess what? There's more outside. Thank you very much, and welcome to Hack for Congress DC. This is the third, not just for technologists, hackathon that we at the OpenGov Foundation have been putting on with the wonderful people at Harvard University's Ash Center. Before we get rolling with our program, I wanted to give a special shout out and thanks to many of the supporting organizations, sponsors, just generally awesome people who've made Cambridge, San Francisco, and now DC happen, and happen free of charge for everybody here. Please hold your applause till the end. I want to give a special thank you to my team, Laylee Slutz, who's out there at registration, Chris Burke and Bill Hunt right back here, Aaron Bartnick, who's floating around, and honorary OpenGov Foundation teammates Danielle Oliveto and Tatiana Posada. And then a special shout out to Harvard University's Ash Center staff, Archon Fung, Tony Sage, Marty Mozzie, Tim Glenn Burke is around here, he's over there, Melissa Danello, Dan Harsh, and Macy O'Brien, and Maggie McKinley. This whole event started as a dream on a whiteboard with the fine folks at Harvard and us, and it's been an incredible ride so far. We are here at Google in DC, and they're hosting us, and last night, Microsoft hosted us last night for a panel. We could not be here without them. So please, a special round of applause for Microsoft, Google, and our event organizers. Thank you very much. And before I begin, is this anybody's first hackathon? All right, so we got some fresh meat, yes. I'm gonna ask, Ted Henderson, what is, for our newbies, a hackathon?
Yeah, there we go. I'm Ted from Capital Bells. So to me, a hackathon is a chance for us all to get together and do. And I think a lot of times we're thinking and planning, we have ideas. Well, this is a place where we're all together. We're not just our technologists, but we have some technologists, we have some policymakers, we have some senators, and we've got some great challenges from members of Congress, and they've told us what the problems are. They've offered some potential solutions, and now we have this awesome chance to just get together, break off in some groups, and just see what we can do in a couple days.
Amen.
Just easy as that.
Thank you. Pretty simple. Thank you, Ted. Now, how does all of that hackathon mentality apply to Congress? Jessica.
Hi, I'm Jessica. I work for Senator Cornyn. We submitted a couple challenges, actually. I think that the big break that happens with Congress is that you get a lot of people on the inside who understand the rules and deal with the problems every day, but aren't technical enough to come up with solutions. So I'm really looking forward to see what the collaborations bring.
Amen. Thank you, Jessica, and thank you, Ted. That's what it's all about. It's all about creating these connections. It's all about capacity building. and tackling the challenges. These are real problems that slow down Congress, waste time, waste energy, and prevent the institution from serving us as American citizens efficiently and effectively. But a 2-day hackathon, or even 6 days of Hack for Congress, are not going to solve all these problems. That's, like Joe Trippi said last night at our panel, to really create the culture of openness, of engagement, and of accountability that we're all seeking here in our different ways, we need a Hack for Congress every single day. And while it would be awesome to take over Google and do this every day, we can't. Have no fear. There are people, some of whom are in this room, who are doing this every day. And I think that's one of the larger messages and takeaways that I want everybody in this room to go home with, is creating that 21st century Congress is a job for all of us. Software engineers can't do it by themselves. If they did, Google probably would have nailed it already. Designers can't do it by themselves, but we need you. Staff can't do it by themselves, but we need you. People in the civic technology community can't do it by ourselves, but we need us. And especially we need elected officials who care. Thank God we have some of those who will be joining us this week. Now, how do we get there? Well, we get there with things like this. And what does this mean? So let me give you a quick overview before I turn it over to Google's VP of Public Policy, Susan Molinari, to introduce Senator Ron Wyden. We're doing this now, an orientation session. And after we do opening remarks, we're going to split off into our challenge areas. There are 5 of them. Improving the lawmaking process, facilitating cross-partisan dialogue, modernizing congressional participation, closing the representation and trust gaps, and reforming campaign finance. So right when we break here, we'll go outside. There are 2 areas next door. There will be 2 in here and 1 outside. So you can start shopping for the projects you want to work on. Now, I know some people in here already have a good idea of what they want to work on, but that'll be a good opportunity to meet everybody, rotate, and see what you want to work on over the next 2 days. Now, we'll be doing a lot of hacking, building, and designing, and then tomorrow pitching and judging, right on this stage. So you'll get up here and pretend like you're on Shark Tank and pitch your idea to our August panel of judges. The criteria are really important to keep in mind. What are they going to be grading your projects, your solutions to congressional problems by? Feasibility. Is this a feasible project and a feasible solution? Openness and replication. Can somebody take your work and build off of it or take it to another legislature? Accessibility. How accessible is this to the broadest number of people? And necessity impact. Is your idea, solving your problem, going to change the game? It's pretty simple, as Ted said. Get together, pick a problem, pick a team, work together, create a solution. It's not that hard. But together, all of us can make progress over the next 2 days at Hack for Congress to deliver a better legislature. And I hope that this lives on far beyond these 2 days when you go home. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Susan Molinari. As Vice President of Public Policy and Government Affairs at Google, Susan leads policy and government relations work in North and South America. Prior to joining Google, Susan was a member of Congress, lobbyist, and public affairs executive. While in Congress, Susan was elected by her colleagues to Republican majority leadership, making her the highest-ranking woman in the Congress. As a member of the House Budget Committee, she was at the forefront of producing Congress's first balanced budget in 29 years. She got her start in politics as the minority leader of the New York City Council. Susan, thanks for having us over to your house, and welcome.
To have you here.
Give it up for Susan.
Thank you, Seamus. I am going to be very brief right now because Senator Wyden is in a hurry because he's got the people's business that he has to attend to today. But first, I do have to welcome you all. We're so excited to be hosting you here today. Here in our DC office, we very much believe that smart policy encourages and enables innovation and technology to thrive, and that's a lot of what we try and do here. And of course, the reverse is true, which is what you're all working on today, that innovation and technology can make our government better, smarter, and more responsive. There's somebody here in this room, Senator Wyden, who is sort of the penultimate champion of the internet and believing that government shouldn't get in innovation's way, and in fact, innovation can help government. And since he's been in government office, he has really been the champion for all of us. He's worked on tireless efforts to protect intermediary liability protections that has allowed the internet to flourish as we know it, to his fight against government surveillance, to his protection of fair use and opposition to copyright legislation like PIPA and SOPA. Internet users around the world, and I truly mean that, owe Senator Wyden a debt of gratitude for supporting the Internet, allowing for an openness that we could not have even imagined a couple of decades ago. So the fact, ladies and gentlemen, that you are in this room and about to do what you're about to do and all the other things that you do when you leave here or before you got here are largely responsible. Senator Wyden is largely responsible for the atmosphere in the environment that has helped to create this open internet that has allowed you to provide us with the answers that we need for a better tomorrow. So Senator Ron Wyden.
What an inflationary introduction. And the first thing we ought to do at a hackathon is declare it to be a filibuster-free zone. So I'm going to be, there we go. It's going to be real brief. As I was coming over, I was thinking, you hear the word hack, and people are hacking. And the gut says, gee, that sounds really bad. You know, people are up to something really awful. And I think the first thing we want to do is celebrate that this is hacking for the right reason. This is hacking for a good cause. This is hacking to make the government more open, more responsive, and more efficient. So I think the first thing a hackathon's got to do is say, oh, you may have heard all these creepy things about people, hacking, but this is for the right reason. And suffice it to say, and Susan really touched on it, you're here because through a whole lot of efforts, and they've been bipartisan. I know Darrell Issa is going to be here in a bit, and there are a whole host of Democrats and Republicans who came together and said we wanted the bottom line in terms of technology policy is to have an open internet. Everything we have tried to do in terms of trying to keep the government out of stuff in areas like taxation, where the goal was to not have the net swamped by multiple and discriminatory taxes, everything was about trying to keep the internet open. Susan made mention of the liability provision. Back in 1998, we found that a website or a blog the owners could be held personally liable for something that was posted on it. Folks, if that decision had stood, I don't think there would have been the social media. I don't think people would have invested in that space if they knew that they were going to be held personally liable. So we had a bipartisan group, and we worked on it, and we managed to pass a law so that intermediaries wouldn't be held liable. Guess what? Just a couple of days ago in the United States Senate, almost everybody in the Senate, except Maria Cantwell and I, and she's from Washington, and I venture to say she's a hackathon veteran as well, we said we're not going to support chipping away at it. And yet virtually everybody in the United States Senate said, oh my goodness, we're concerned about sex trafficking. We ought to be. I don't take a back seat to anybody in terms of being against sex trafficking, but suddenly we were getting back into the business of holding intermediaries personally liable. So your fight, after you thought you won it more than a decade ago, continues to go on even today. Two last points. First, when Susan mentioned the globe, boy, is that apocryphal. I don't think you can imagine a country in the last couple of years being as repressive online as China. It just takes your breath away. I mean, certainly we know about Russia and China. I'm on the Intelligence Committee. My older child calls it the so-called Intelligence Committee. But, China has really put a blanket of repression, over the net. So this is a worldwide battle. And the last point that I will make, this morning deals with PIPA and SOPA. So I put a hold on the predecessor of PIPA and SOPA, and I put a hold on PIPA and SOPA. It was the Senate version, PIPA, as well. And at the time, there were more than 40 senators who were co-sponsoring PIPA, huge number in the House of Representatives. And people thought that the prospect of our derailing that, was, like 1 in a million. It was just like considered impossible. And 40 senators, that's practically all you need in order to just pass something without any real debate. And I said, I don't think so. I think when the country and some of those folks online understand that in the name of fighting piracy, people are going to kind of go out there and start dismantling the net, the domain name system and the like. I just want you to know, I said to our senators and House members, I don't think people are going to be so quick at it. And everybody said, oh, that's Ron. He's from Oregon. You know, this kind of thing. And I said, let me tell you, there are people who spend a lot more time online in a week than they do thinking about their senator in 2 years. And when they hear about this, they are not going to be so happy. And everybody said, fine, we're going to just blow through this. And a vote was scheduled. A vote was scheduled on overriding my hold. And 5 days before that vote, you all essentially hacked the Congress. You basically mobilized online. There were sites that went dark. There were sites that didn't go dark. But you essentially hacked the Congress with this grassroots juggernaut. And so the vote was scheduled for 5 days. In 5 days after you all, weighed in, and about 24 hours after you hacked the United States Congress, the online community pulled off what nobody thought there was a prayer of. And I got a call from the leadership saying the vote to override your hold has been canceled. So make no mistake about it, and I'll close with this. This is not some kind of abstract, exercise. You're going to work on open sourcing, and obviously a lot of journalists now and people who want to access them. It's a much more portable world, so we need that updated in an open source kind of fashion. I saw the list of projects you have. It's terrific, and I just wanted to come today to say I think you're on the right side of history. Number one, victories past that were important, like PIPA and SOPA, came about because you hacked for the right reason. And we learned again in the United States Senate a couple of days ago that your job isn't close to being done. So thank you for what you're doing. I thank Google. I thank Harvard. Have a great meeting, and look forward to doing a lot of plotting with you in the days ahead. Thanks, everybody.
It's kind of hard to miss. Oh, there he is.
There he is.
Okay.
Thank you.
Go ahead, you.
Oh, yeah, thank you. I just want to say, Senator Wyden, you are indirectly responsible for the launch of the OpenGov Foundation, because we got started with our Madison platform, crowdsourcing PIPA and SOPA, and the opposition to it.
Give Daryl likes her bouquets, too. I appreciate it.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you. Turn it back over to Susan to introduce Senator Wyden.
I just want you all to take some notes of the bipartisanship that is going on here today. Yes, exactly. And we're going to continue on that bipartisan spirit, because when it does come to people who want to protect the open internet, it is a bipartisan effort, and we're really thrilled to have somebody here today to join us in welcoming you, and that is in Senator John Thune. Just by way of background, he serves as chairman of this Senate committee, the committee that has jurisdiction over all the legislation that impacts the internet or apps. I'm proud of his consistent and strident, in a good way, hands-off approach to regulation of the internet, which has allowed the internet to grow and flourish. I know Senator Thune will agree that the internet has led to a more open and transparent government and greater communication with constituents. Today's exercise hopefully will achieve one of Senator Thune's goals, to find ways to use technology to allow Senate hearings to become even more informative than they are today by incorporating photos, graphics, and interactive displays. Again, Senator Thune is one of those people that we call when we're nervous about a congressional overreach, and he gets the job done for all of us. So ladies and gentlemen, help me thank Senator John Thune.
Great to be here. Thank you. Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Washington. I'm glad they're calling this Hack for Congress instead of Hack at Congress, because that's usually what happens around here. But I'm delighted to be able to be with you, and we appreciate all the good work that you are doing and going to do, and very excited to have you here. Some people refer to Washington, D.C. as Disneyland East, but sometimes it's when people look at this, all they see is chaos and disorder and dysfunction, but actually we are starting to get some things done for the good of the country, and that's encouraging. And I hope that we can continue to open up the process, because when the process is open and transparent, you get more good representation, you get more of the kind of public input that we need in order to make good decisions here for people across this country. So welcome, and I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to submit 3 challenges for the hackathon. I'm eager as anyone else to see your ideas get into motion, and so I want to be brief here this morning. But I wanted to get started by saying that you are part of an extraordinary effort. While Capitol Hill frequently has issues brought to our attention, it is exceedingly rare to have such a skilled and motivated volunteer group focused on improving how our legislative branch does our business. Elections can and do usher in change, and last year's election has ushered in new leadership in the United States Senate, but government is stubborn. For all the change that the election brought to the United States Senate, the systems we use to communicate with our constituents, the processes that we use to legislate, the protocols we use to procure information technology remain very largely unchanged from where they were 6 months ago, and in many cases, 6 or more years ago. Did you know, for example, that during the committee amendment process, sometimes amendments are proposed by making handwritten additions to printed copy or by simply crossing out text with a pen? Very old school. Or that the official Senate copy of committee proceedings, while recorded in HD format, are downgraded just a week later to standard format when they're copied to a DVD for storage. Through the use of email and electronic documents, I should say, though the use of email and electronic documents has certainly increased, a paper copy of every bill, sometimes thousands of pages long, is still placed on each senator's desk in the Senate chamber when the bill is debated. This happens even though staff and members have hopefully been poring over the text in their own offices for days, weeks, or sometimes even months in advance. Real technological advancement is necessarily a disruptive force. As you work on the challenges today, I want to encourage you to be bold and push our institution to change old ways of doing business with new innovations that allow us to do our jobs better. There is frustration in our country with Congress and the federal bureaucracy that often seems to put its own needs before those of the public. And as much as I and colleagues on both sides of the aisle acknowledge such problems, we often struggle as an institution to convey our analysis of important policy debates to the public. The challenges that we face can be sometimes quite complicated, but we often only have a few minutes to explain them in media appearances. Whether Congress has it right or wrong, in an age of instant information, a representative body serves no one well when it misses opportunities to create common understanding of problems and solutions. A real dialogue with the public is also not supposed to be a one-way conversation. As much as we want the public to know and understand what we're doing and why we're doing it, input from the public is just as critical for us. What if we could use technology to make that input more impactful? What if we could analyze opinions on an issue to yield more than just counts of support or opposition, which is typically what we do in our offices? What if analysis could help us find and reach out to thought leaders in our states to back important policy initiatives? Could we find ways to differentiate original suggestions from those that have already been discussed? Identify ways for the most thoughtful feedback on our efforts to stand out over the most polarizing feedback. The existence of such tools could actually help change the tone of discussion. Finding ways to help constructive suggestions stand out would create new incentives for productive dialogue. Citizens who espouse similar views in public internet forums could also use such technology to find one another and to develop true grassroots movements based on their positions. Technology has done incredible things in this country. As chairman of the Senate Commerce Committee, which is legislative jurisdiction over the internet, we've looked sector by sector at how technology is revolutionizing services. And just to give you some examples, medical patients in rural areas, I represent a rural area, can have serious conditions monitored over the internet instead of facing frequent, lengthy treks to the hospital. A system is currently being developed so that emergency first responders and law enforcement can talk across jurisdictions and share critical information as the need arises, something that's long overdue. By having commercial aircraft and ground controllers coordinate through modernized communication systems, we will reduce delays and save fuel while simultaneously improving safety. Congress has to do better, and that's why I'm glad that you're here to help. It's easy to be a cynic in Washington, but I'm energized by the spirit of this endeavor and your commitment to selfless service. Your readiness to help reminds me of something that our late President John F. Kennedy said in his inaugural address. To quote President Kennedy, "The energy, the faith, the devotion which we bring to this endeavor will light our country and all who serve it, and the glow from that fire can truly light the world." And he goes on to say, as we all know, "So fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country." So I'm anxious to see what you all are going to be able to do in helping to build our digital democracy here in Washington, D.C. And as my predecessor, Ron Wyden, said, and I work with him on a lot of digital issues, digital trade, digital tax issues, all those things that are important to the digital economy. It takes bipartisanship in order to accomplish anything in Washington, D.C. The challenges are great, but the opportunities are great. When I first was here as a staffer back in 1985, C-SPAN hadn't even yet come to the United States Senate. It was a very different world. And when I was growing up, I grew up in a small town in South Dakota of about 500 people called Murdo. It's out in the middle of the state. And for me, the world ended and began and ended, I should say, at the city limits of my hometown. You know, that was about all you ever saw. Now I have a 95-year-old father who still lives in my hometown in a little house that I grew up in, who has access to the world through the internet. And it's remarkable to see the way in which a 95-year-old guy can continue to use that technology. It keeps him informed, it keeps him sort of fresh and creative and in touch with what's going on in the world around him. So we need to do more of that here in Washington, D.C. We need to figure out new and better ways of communicating with our constituents, of getting input that's useful, thoughtful, impactful, and using it and applying it in the way that we do our job so that we can have a more open, more transparent, and more effective democracy in this country. And you are all an important part of that. So thank you for being here today. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to stop and say hi, and I hope you have a great day. Thank you. Thanks, Susan. Thank you.
All right. Now it's time to get our hands dirty. Thank you, Senator Wyden. Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Senator Thune. Senator Thune is going to stick around for questions. Would love to hear about your projects for a few minutes, too. So make sure that you find him. So already, we've been doing this for less than 10 hours. We have brought together Google and Microsoft. We've brought together Republicans and Democrats. Now, can we bring together problems holding back Congress and innovative solutions? We've got 28 hours before judging begins to find out. So now, let's disperse to the areas. You'll see easels with the challenge areas. So if you're interested in working on those areas, go over there to find a team and meet some people. See Senator Thune after this, and let's get hacking. We'll see you at noon, lunch right here for a visit from Senator Richard Blumenthal. Thank you all, and we'll see you in a couple hours. Let's get hacking.